You probably heard the saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. But no one warns you about is this, what if the people you go with aren't the right ones? What if together means wasted time, poor hires, broken trust, and delayed growth? In my case, it did. And that's how I learned that sometimes the smartest way forward isn't with a team. It's by walking alone until you know exactly what you're building and who deserves to build it with you. Welcome back to Founder Unfiltered, the podcast where I talk about the parts of the founder journey we're not supposed to talk about out loud. I'm Janna Trojak, a product manager and a consultant, helping founders create user-centric products and self-sustaining startups. I'm also the founder of Heart Renew, a self-dating app built from everything I had to learn and rebuild as a founder. In our first episode, I talked about being a flag in the wind, shifting with everyone else's visions and opinions. In the second one, I explored how I tried to raise money before having any real momentum. But this one, the episode 3, is about the deepest mistake of all. People. Who you hire, who you trust, and what happens when you get it wrong. Ever since childhood, I've been fascinated by human behavior, observing what people say, how they act, and what motivates them. Despite this curiosity, understanding people's motives, especially in business contexts, remained elusive for me for years. I naively believed things would naturally fall into place when I started my company. I should be just nice to people and they will do whatever I ask them to do. But reality proved otherwise, and that lessons came at a significant cost. At the point of starting my first company, I didn't know much about managing teams or motivating people. I haven't learned how people respond to changes or that different people with different competencies and sets of skills should be managed or motivated differently. To be honest, I haven't even learned how to motivate and manage myself. And let me share some eye-opening statistics that put this issue into perspective. According to Gallup 2023 State of the Global Workplace report, only 23% of employees are engaged at work, with the majority, a staggering 59%, merely quiet quitting. That term might be a relatively new buzzword that came from TikTok, but the concept isn't new at all. These are people doing the minimal required to keep their jobs without any real investment in the company's success. The disengagement cost the global economy approximately 8.8 trillion or 9% of global GDP. Think about that for a moment. Nearly a tenth of all global economic output is lost because people aren't engaged in their work. These statistics underline a fundamental truth I learned the hard way. People are indeed the lifeblood of your business. They're the ones who help you grow, scale, and represent your company to the world. The lack of engaged, motivated people can destroy your business faster than any lack of vision or even the worst bureaucratic headaches. In fact, the Harvard Business Review notes that 65% of startups fail due to people problems, product and market issues. My own experience aligns perfectly with the statistics. When I was just getting started with my first venture, my focus was all about securing the first investment. I've talked about it in the last week episode. It took me a year to get a grant, and by then, inflation had spiked significantly. All the financial predictions me and my co-founders had made were completely inadequate, and the talent we wanted to hire suddenly became way more expensive than we had budgeted for. So we made compromises. In our desperation to stretch limited resources, we compromised on talent acquisition. We hired specialists willing to work for less, often bringing on friends of friends without proper vetting. Let me tell you about Helen. Now, this isn't a real person, but rather a composite character representing a common hiring mistake we made. Helen managed our content and social media. While she was personable and could write well, she lacked social media marketing expertise. After 2 years of unfocused effort, our Instagram account had merely 83 followers. Now, that might not sound like a big deal, but according to Sprout Social Research, businesses with strategic social media management see 5-7 times that growth in just 6 months. We wasted 2 years and countless hours of work for minimal results. And here's the thing. Helen thought that doing social media marketing for startup requires similar perfection like with the bigger brands. So I have to give her credit where it is due. She really focused on figuring out the perfect story and creative for the post. But then months passed and we didn't have much post on our Instagram or our other social media. But the problem is that just like with the products, that has to be imperfect at first and we launch it when it has bugs and it lacks certain features. You have to be willing to post an imperfect thing many times and you don't know what it's gonna take because to be honest, in startup, at first, we don't really know what is our target audience. We have like a rough idea, but we don't know so much about them. And we have to put ourselves out there to actually find out by posting and learning what do they like and to what they're responding. And the problem was that perfect idea that Helen was like trying to create and come up with and then post after months of not posting, usually it flopped. And what's particularly frustrating in retrospect is that we hired Helen primarily because she was within our budget and came recommended by someone we knew. We never properly assessed her skills or asked for proof of past successes. We were so focused on filling the position quickly and cheaply that we failed to consider whether she was actually the right person for this job. And Helen isn't the only example. We had similar mistakes across various roles. Hiring for convenience rather than competence, bringing friends on board without clear expectations, and failing to establish accountability system. All of those decisions came back to haunt us. We also focused too much attention on the meetings and failed to establish proper structure. Every week we spent hours on meetings that didn't contribute much to moving the needle. It was brainstorming, status, and problem solution in one meeting. That lasted for an hour or even more. Everybody communicated as they preferred, and tasks were assigned in emails, WhatsApp, during phone calls, and in Asana for a moment, but that was quickly ditched. Fast forward to my current ventures. One of my latest projects has amassed over 3,800 followers since May. My other project, Hot Renew, which I'm talking about in this podcast, self-dating app, has 866 followers. It's not much, but it's not 83 followers either. Even my personal LinkedIn account where I post about all my projects has over 2,000 followers. What changed? I took ownership of the process, applied patience and implemented data-driven strategies. Basically, I did something that Helen didn't. I allowed myself to be imperfect, while at the same I kept posting almost every day. A buffer study confirms this approach, showing that founder-led social accounts in early-stage startups experience 3 times more engagement than outsourced management. But here's the really interesting part. I'm doing all of this by myself now. Initially, the prospect of handling multiple roles felt completely overwhelming. 2023 McKinsey survey revealed that 72% of entrepreneurs believe they need to be expert in everything, and an impossible standard that I certainly bought into. However, my experience lies more with research from the Journal of Business Venturing, which found that founders who initially perform key functions themselves develop 40% better hiring judgment when they eventually delegate. This makes perfect sense to me now. How can you effectively manage someone in a role you don't understand? By immersing myself in various aspects of the business, I gained first-hand knowledge of what each role actually requires. The MIT Sloan Management Review shows this improves delegation success rates by 62%. I developed more discerning hiring criteria beyond just personality fit or budget constraints, and perhaps most importantly, I learned to evaluate problem-solving approaches and value alignment in potential team members. There's a pervasive myth in startup culture that you need to build a team as quickly as possible. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. It's the saying we all heard. But what if going together with the wrong people actually slows you down and limits how far you can go? I've come to believe that working alone in the early stages of business isn't just acceptable, it's often preferable. This doesn't mean you should try to do everything yourself forever. Absolutely not. That's obviously not sustainable or scalable, but there's immense value in understanding each component of your business before you start delegating. Think about it this way. If you don't know what good social media management looks like, how will you know if you hired the right person? If you never run ads yourselves, how will you evaluate the performance of your marketing team? If you don't understand the basics of your product development, how can you set reasonable deadlines or quality standards? These questions might seem obvious in retrospect, but when you're in the trenches of building a startup, especially your first one, the pressure to grow quickly can cloud your judgment. I fell into the trap of thinking that delegation meant progress regardless of the results. Another mistake I made was conflating networking with hiring. Building a professional network doesn't mean you should hire indiscriminately from it. According to LinkedIn data, 85% of jobs are filed through networking, but the most successful placements come from second-degree connections with relevant expertise, not immediate friends. Although in my previous startup I solely relied on the networks of my co-founder, now I've actually cultivated a network for advice and occasional collaboration. But I no longer hire based solely on convenience or familiarity. The Stanford Social Innovation Review notes that mission-driven organizations succeed when they prioritize skills alignment over network proximity. I want to take a moment to address the emotional aspect of working alone, because it's not just about business strategy. It's also about mental health and sustainability. There's a certain loneliness that comes with being a solo founder, especially in the early days. You don't have teammates to celebrate wins with or commiserate with during setbacks. Every decision rests on your shoulders. That can be incredibly taxing. But I found that this pressure also brings clarity. When you're fully responsible for outcomes, you become more intentional about how you spend your time and energy. You develop a ruthless prioritization system that helps you focus on what truly matters. Working alone also eliminated the cognitive load of managing interpersonal dynamics. I no longer had to worry about office politics, keeping team members motivated, or resolving conflicts between staff. That freed up mental space for creative problem solving and strategic thinking. Of course, there are downsides. Echo chambers are real, and without the diverse perspectives, it's easy to miss blind spots in your thinking. That's why I built a network of advisors and peers who I can bounce ideas off, even though they are not my formal team members. I recently talked about it with one person, and she said that networking is not only good for business because you gain those valuable contacts, but it's also good for you because you keep the network of people that you can talk to, that have similar experiences, that can support you, that can cheer you on, and sometimes when it's needed, give you some sort of feedback or help. The key difference is that these relationships are focused on exchange of ideas rather than execution of tasks. I'm not managing these people. I'm engaging with them as equals, which fundamentally changes the dynamic. So, what are the key takeaways from my journey? Here are several data-supported lessons that might help you in your own entrepreneurial path. First, people truly determine business outcomes. A Columbia University study found that organizations with rich company culture experience 33% higher revenue. But culture isn't something you can manufacture. It's a reflection of the people we bring together. One bad hire can poison your entire organization, especially when it's small. Second, doing it yourself provides invaluable insights. According to First Round Capital State of Startups report, founders who spend time doing frontline work before delegating report 37% higher team performance. This hands-on experience gives you a deep understanding of what success looks like in each role. Third, strategic hiring beats quick fixes every time. Research in the Harvard Business Review shows that the cost of bad hire ranges from 30% to 213% of the employee's annual salary. That's not just the financial cost, it includes the opportunity cost, the impact on team morale, and the potential damage to customer relationships. Here's one more insight that I found particularly valuable. Documentation is crucial, even when you're working alone. By recording processes, decisions, and outcomes, you're creating a playbook for eventual delegation. When you do start building a team, you'll have clear expectations and systems already in place. I want to touch on something that isn't discussed often enough in entrepreneurial circles, how your personality affects your approach to team building. I'm naturally an empathetic person who values harmony. This made it difficult for me to establish firm boundaries, provide critical feedback, or let people go when they weren't performing. I wanted to be liked more than I wanted to be effective, and that often undermines my leadership. Working alone for a while has helped me develop a stronger sense of what I value professionally, separate from my desires to be liked. I have learned that true kindness in leadership often means being clear and direct, even when it's uncomfortable in the moment. If you're similar to me in this regard, you might benefit from a period of solo work to build your confidence and clarify your standards before you take on the responsibility of managing others. On the flip side, you're someone who thrives on collaboration and draws energy from working with others. The solo approach might be more challenging for you. In that case, consider seeking co-founders who complement your strengths and share your vision rather than hiring employees right away. In conclusion, people remain both the greatest asset and the most complex challenge in business. The time I invested working solo wasn't wasted. It was an intensive education in business fundamentals. Now, when I do eventually start hiring again, I'll focus less on charm or impressive resumes and more on demonstrated value creation potential. If there's one message I want you to take from today's episode is this. Don't rush to build a team before you understand your business. The early days of working alone are not just a phase to get through as quickly as possible. They're a valuable opportunity to develop the knowledge and judgment you'll need to build a truly effective team later on. Remember, some of the most successful companies in the world started with a single person doing everything. Amazon was just Jeff Bezos shipping books from his garage. Nike was just Phil Knight selling shoes from the trunk of his car. Apple was just Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak tinkering in a garage. They didn't start with teams, they started with vision, dedication, and the willingness to do whatever they do to make their ideas reality. In our next episode, I'll be shifting gears a bit to talk about product development, specifically the mistakes I made in building something people didn't actually want. That's another expensive lesson that I'm eager to share with you. Until then, remember, sometimes the best thing is no team at all, at least not at first. Build yourself before you build your team, and you'll set yourself up for much greater success in the long run. This is Founder Unfiltered. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.